The Yellow Brick Road. This video does not reflect the actual views of real people. These are actors playing a role to entertain audiences. No persons or animals were harmed in the making of this video. Gosh, I love YouTube and I love Google.
Okay, welcome to the Yellow Brick Road. I am Jordan. I'm your host today. We're going to talk about some political progressive beef. I love political beef. It's beautiful. It allows people to sharpen their knives, sharpen their arguments up. But the one I'm about to talk about seems pretty obvious to me. So, I guess over the past week, Dore has had some criticisms from progressive voices like Seder and Pakman. And I think there's just a language barrier. I don't think it's a verbal, here's my words barrier. It's a language barrier of I'm trying to say something meaningful and I'm trying to say something analytical, right? Dore on the conscience, the wisdom side, and Seder and Pakman on the analytical side. And I honestly think Dore understands what they're saying, but they don't understand what he's saying, right? He can see that you're analyzing things as in, if we get this person elected now, then we can control this part of government at this point, and that will lead to this, and that'll get the guy we really want voted in. And Dore's like, we can't sacrifice anything. We can't sacrifice a shred of decision making anywhere. If we compromise at any point, then we're losing the point. We're losing the bigger picture of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this Pakman video titled Tribalism, Memberships Canceled Over David's Dore Criticism. So as much as I think I'm going to be translating for Dore, I think I'm going to be translating for his fans too. Because Pakman and Seder don't speak their language either, right? I think they speak something more that I would agree with, which is the point of politics is it's a collective way to use our conscience, right? We use politics to develop laws and policies, how we treat other people. It's supposed to be a moral collectivity. That's what I think. And you can't compromise anywhere. Otherwise, you're losing the big picture of things. Right? You don't bomb other countries because it kills people and kills innocent people as well. Not because it's strategically bad, because if we bomb here then they might retaliate and then this and that. It's like, yeah, you consider that too, but the main objective is not to hurt other people, which is why I think Dore gets so fired up about it. So let's use this Pakman video and I'll try to translate for him. Hopefully he watches this so he can understand why people had such a reaction to him criticizing Dore.
Okay, I've got to talk about something that I think some people aren't going to like. You know that on this show there are no sacred cows, right? This is a left-wing progressive show, so a lot of the criticisms are of right-wing ideas and of right-wing people, but there's no shortfall, there's no shortage of misguided left-wing ideas and left-wing people, and I call them out. I don't believe in tribalism that says, even if there are people on the left who are toxic or have bad ideas, you can't criticize them because they're part of the same movement.
Okay, let me stop you here. I don't think it's tribalism. I think in your mind, because you think so analytically, that you think that it's this team is ganging up on this team or whatever. I don't think it's team. I think it's just people using their conscience. Like, you should be upset that these things are happening. That, you know, there's people without health care, that were in wars in all these foreign countries, that there's billionaires getting richer and richer. Like, that's just your conscience screaming to you, like, there's something wrong with this, right? I don't think it's team playing or tribalism. So, once again, I'm just trying to translate, that's all.
Same tribe, the same left wing. So last week we got a live call. As you know, Pat, we don't screen live calls for topics. People can ask anything they want. And a caller said, David, what do you think about Jimmy Dore, who's now going to battle against Sam Seder or Bernie, AOC, Andrew Gillum, I don't even know how he says his last name.
I think he had legit criticisms of them, correct? Bernie Sanders not fighting for his own seat during the primary. He didn't fight for the winner, even though it was understood that there was voter fraud happening, basically, and super delegates and all that bullshit. Correct me if I'm wrong. AOC, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, right? Her, I don't know if he criticized her on the Israel thing, where she sort of fell back on calling it a occupied state or whatever like that. I think he really called her out for I know he called her out for the Cuomo thing of support Democrat no matter what. And Jimmy's like, well, a lot of these guys are fucking corrupt. So you can't just vote blue no matter what. And Cuomo's pretty blatantly corrupt. You can't just support him because he's a Democrat and he's on your team. What else did you say?
The caller said, David, what do you think about Jimmy Dore, who's now going to battle against Sam Seder or Bernie, AOC, Andrew Gillum, I don't even know how he says his last name.
Andrew, I don't know how to say his name either. Andrew Gillum, him, you know, taking selfies or whatever, FaceTime with Instagram videos with Cory Booker. It's like him backtracking on Medicare for all. Those sound like legit criticisms to me. I don't know. And the Sam Seder one is probably the same problem he would have with you, which is being over analytical and only looking at politics as a game of winning. Right? We keep winning here and keep winning here and keep playing the political games here. We get this guy in, even though he's not our choice, but we just got to get him in there so that he can help us out over the next 10 years, and then this will happen, and then one day some fantastic day will happen to where we have our guy uplifted in the presidency, and it will rain candy canes and I don't know, lollipops. There you go. All right.
His name. And I gave my opinion. I gave my opinion, as I always do, which was to say in this case that I think Jimmy Dore has become totally toxic. I think he's a useful idiot and a tool of really bad movements.
That's what people would say about you, man. Let's be honest. I think people would say that about you. That you're willing to... I'm sure he's a guy who would have voted for Hillary Clinton over Trump. And it's like, guys, you have a third party there that basically believes the same things you do. Maybe even more so. Maybe they even believe in higher ideals, but I think I'm sure of Sam Seder's strategy was, well, you're taking away votes from Clinton. If you take away votes from Clinton, then Donald Trump gets elected, then bad shit happens, even though Clinton was going to bring her own heavy baggage of bad shit. Maybe even worse than Trump.
And I got a ton of angry emails and dislikes and even a handful of people who had paid subscriptions to the show who canceled them. This is really a concern. It's a concern for me, but it's a concern for the left. Here's an example email, okay? This is from former member Jackie, who said, David, it's very disappointing that you have opted to do on-air attacks on Jimmy Dore. Quote, completely toxic, useful idiot, and dumb left were the choice words. By extension, you are referring to his audience as well, which happens to overlap with your audience. Sadly, I was foolish enough to pay the annual fee for my Pakman membership, which was valid till next ... I still canceled anyway. You can consider this hatred mail if you so choose, but that's not what it is. By having segments attacking other progressives who aren't lockstep with your views, you are the one being toxic.
I should try to translate that. I would translate it this way. There's a reason why she likes Jimmy Dore and why she would take Jimmy Dore over you or over Sam Seder. Once again, it's that conscience thing. It's something fucked up happened. I should be upset about this. You guys don't seem to get upset enough. You seem to focus more on the analytical politics, the political games, which I think a lot of people don't like at all.
This is one of a handful of people who wrote me stuff like this and canceled membership. So first of all, just consider the irony that they say I'm being toxic by attacking a progressive who's not in lockstep with my views. By canceling their memberships because I think Dore is toxic, they are attacking me financially for not being in lockstep with their views. It's sort of the same thing. This is really important, okay? Don't miss the irony of that. But more importantly, the left can't be like this, okay? There are bad ideas on the left and right. There are bad faith actors on the left and right. There are way more on the right, and we mostly focus on the ones on the right. But consider the opposite. When I get a call that says, David, what do you think about the direction Jimmy Dore has gone in? My alternative, instead of giving you my honest opinion, is to lie and say he's doing great work. Would the audience want me to lie and just say something like that because of tribalism or so that I don't anger certain people in the audience?
I think they want you to get it, to understand why he gets pissed off and he starts yelling shit. He calls people names, not really so derogatory, but more like, you know, you're corrupt, things like that.
Can't imagine that that's what the audience wants. And if the idea is that I need to turn the show not into what I genuinely think, but instead into what the leftist groupthink has determined is better for, quote, the movement, that is a tribalistic disaster. So assuming you don't want me to lie to you, basically people who cancel because I gave my honest opinion about Jimmy are saying they're canceling because I have the wrong opinion. And I think that that's really dangerous because, as I've said before, no two people are going to agree on everything ever, right? And if independent media is going to survive and thrive, which I believe it needs to do, okay, it can't depend on the financial support that exists only up until there's a disagreement on one issue, right? Of course, people can choose to support me or not support me for any reason, right? Or any other show for that matter. But this is why the right is succeeding in so many ways. They have made a commitment where they say, let's support people who are basically on our side. They might be anti-gay, but if there's a pro-gay rights Republican who's mostly on their side and helps their movement, they support that person.
Once again, you just sound analytical. Like you're reading people like digits like numbers on a computer screen, rather than actual people. Right? It seems like you have a disconnect there, which is why people will side with Jimmy Dore, ultimately, I think.
They are anti-abortion, but if there's a pro-choice conservative that's generally furthering, I don't know, their small government views or their low-tax views or whatever, they support that person. If this is how the left is going to decide who we support, we're going to fail, okay? And by the way, if we apply the no support if they say one wrong thing idea, What about all the people who are supporting Jimmy Dore despite the fact that he did at one point push Seth Rich conspiracy theories? If
This is why people, this is why his fans don't like you, man. Because the one thing wrong you're talking about is a crucial issue. It's like if someone's like in lockstep with all your ideas, but they're like, it's okay to murder people, though. That's okay. Murdering people's cool. Like that one thing is like so glaring that you sort of have to separate yourself from them and say, listen, fuck that guy. There's something off with that. Something off with that person. Yeah. Let me rewind a bit.
Support if they say one wrong thing idea. What about all the people who are supporting Jimmy Dore despite the fact that he did at one point push Seth Rich conspiracy theories?
I don't know how much he pushed the Seth Rich conspiracy theory. Either way, shouldn't it be investigated, right? A guy who was shot and killed, and they called it a fucked up robbery. Right? The robbers fucked up and they forgot to steal shit from him. It's like, right, it's a robbery, but they didn't steal anything. Isn't that worth questioning? But if you just keep supporting the whatever narrative, the mainstream narrative, and we'll just end up in 20 more Iraqs. Just don't question anything, Just don't question something that's glaring right in your face.
If you don't buy that stuff, and I think most people in my audience do not, wouldn't that be disqualifying of your support for Jimmy, right? So the main point is, let's not allow ourselves to be ripped apart in this way, and we can't do this type of tribalism.
Also, the discrepancy there, let's say you think Jimmy Dore is way off on the Seth Rich thing, right? That still doesn't question his conscience, right? If he believes something nefarious happened in the Seth Rich case, his conscience would demand him to look into it, right? As opposed to ignoring it. Do you see the difference there? Ignoring it would be your perspective, which could be read as a lack of conscience, right? Something seems fishy and you don't look into it. It's like, okay, what's up with this guy? As opposed to, something seems off here, let me look into it, right? One demands your conscience, the other one requires apathy, basically. Unless you just never heard of the story at all. And you see the difference there?
This type of tribalism is going to destroy the movement from the inside out. If you really think the problem is only progressives making honest critiques of other progressives when they feel they're warranted and making critiques of the right when those are warranted, that is not actually the problem. And we really need to think hard about what it is that we're saying when you say, I'm pulling my support because I disagree with you about this issue or that issue, or think that it should be off limits to criticize other progressive media.
It's not a, see, you're too analytical. It's not a question of politics, man. It's a question of conscience. That is the question. That's why you're getting the feedback you're getting. That's why people are supporting Jimmy Dore, right? Because he has a fire. You can see him. You can see him how angry he looks when he's talking about certain events that smell like corruption, or certain politicians acting a certain way. It's like, man, I've heard this story before. My conscience requires me to call this person the fuck out. That's the difference, man. Right? We're not robots, man. We're not gonna, as far as people who think like I do, we're not gonna sit back and just analyze the politics and say, we'll let this slide so that they can get in office, and then someday it'll bubble. The actual person we want will bubble up because these other people paved the way. It's like, no, it can't work like that. It has to be. You have to have the right people immediately. That's what your conscience requires, right? Not your political strategies and political games. Whatever. If you want to subscribe, subscribe. If you want to comment, comment. And as usual, thumbs. Wait. There we go. Give this video a thumbs up. Thank you.